Hi everyone, how you all doing? Thank you so much for listening to all of us speak today and for showing up today. So I'd be remiss really without talking about the 50th anniversary of the Stonewall riots. It was black and brown, queer, trans people of colour and sex workers that instigated the Stonewall uprising. They had had enough of the continued violence and brutality by the police, and they fought back. It was a butch lesbian of colour, Stormy DeLavari, who spurred into action protecting the young queer people around her who had been harassed, searched and arrested one too many times. She fought back against the police while being arrested and cried out, "Won't anybody do anything?" which spurred Sylvia Rivera and Marsha P. Johnson, other trans women of colour, as well as others from the LGBTQ community into action. What happened 50 years ago was an instigator for the Western LGBTQ rights movement, which had reached all around the world. Without black and brown, queer and trans people, we simply would not be able to enjoy the precarious freedoms we have today. Years ago, Sylvia said that if it wasn't for the drag queen, there would be no gay liberation movement. We're the frontliners. She felt that the mainstream LGBTQ community was not inclusive of trans people, of poor people of colour, or people of colour. She was booed off stage. We talk a lot about Marsha and Sylvia today, but the mainstream LGBTQ community is still not given a voice to today's Marshas and Sylvias. Why is it that the same demographic that was shutting down Sylvia and Marsha 50 years ago are still doing the same today? When we go to Pride events or other events around the country and around the year, but especially during Pride season, we need to look around us. Who's here? Who isn't here? Who can we see? Who's missing? Many of the LGBTQ community don't feel like they belong there. They don't feel like the space is for them. They don't feel like it's safe for them. Pride marches are increasingly centering cis, gay and lesbian experiences with tokenistic attempts to include bi people, trans and non-binary people and also people of colour. These people have always been a part of our community. And what gets me even more is the sharp rise of anti-trans bigotry. Last year, the Sunday Times reported that the UK government is planning to roll back the hard-won rights of trans and non-binary people, despite an overwhelming 70% of responses from the recent consultation of the reform of the Gender Recognition Act in favour of self-identification. The government is scrapping proposals which would make it easier for trans people to change their legal gender by avoiding a costly and time-consuming medical process. The government also plans to enact legislation which would not only negatively impact the lives of trans people, but anyone who is gender non-conforming. Check out the report commissioned by Stonewall, the Trans Report in 2018, and you'll find lots of lived reality and evidence of trans people's lives. From the amount of hate crime that we experience because of our gender identity, the fact that 25% of us have experienced homelessness, and how hard it is for many of us to get medical treatment that we want and need. Last year, hate crime reported by the police went up 81%. There's also been conversations and campaigning around banning conversion therapy. And there's so much more that needs to be done. The government has failed in this area. We need to ban it wherever it occurs, whether it's in public or private, through healthcare or religious and cultural interventions, whoever it's targeted to, whether it's a child or an adult, whether they have been coerced or whether they've consented. From the moment it's spotted through advertising online and offline, We want a full legislative ban, support for victims and survivors, and prevention as well as public education. There's a lot happening and there's a lot going on, and really the question is, what can we do? Dr. Kimberly Crenshaw developed the concept of intersectionality to talk about how oppressions are interlinked. These struggles are interlinked and can't be solved as one. The oppression of one affects us all, and we must work and fight together. Audre Lorde said, "There is no such thing as a single issue struggle because we do not live single issue lives." And recent examples of this have been around COVID-19 and BLM. Black and brown people are disproportionately affected by COVID-19 complications, including death. Black people are 4 times more likely to die due to COVID than white people. South Asians, twice as likely. This is due to inherent racist, classist, and ableist health inequalities that people have been talking about for years, with little or no action being taken. BLM has been thrust again into the light, into the mainstream consciousness with the murder of George Floyd at the hands of the police. BLM is guided by a commitment to dismantling imperialism, capitalism, white supremacy, patriarchy and state structures that disproportionately harm black people in Britain and around the world. There's so much that we need to do, but we need to recognise Britain's colonial past and present and how that manifests today in all of our fights, including the fight and struggle for LGBTQ rights around the UK and around the world. We have come so far in our fight for our rights, but we still have a long way to go. We must remember our roots and who we are as a community. We're beautiful, we're vibrant, we're diverse. I mean, come on, look around. Genuinely, look around right now. And look at the diversity of people here. And I'm so proud and so honoured to be part of this community as a brown, queer, trans, non-binary Muslim. Our struggles are all connected and we must support one another and fight alongside each other for justice and liberation. Where governments refuse to act, we the people must act in solidarity with all oppressed people and fight for justice by any means necessary. And we have seen time and time again, whether it's the civil rights movement, women's rights to vote, or how we saw with the Stonewall Rebellion, that we need legislative and social change for lasting impact. We need people fighting within these systems and fighting outside of and against those systems through direct action and civil obedience. Civil obedience, wow. I did not mean civil obedience. I'm gonna start that sentence again. We need people fighting within the system and fighting outside of and against the system through direct action and civil disobedience. After all, it's what democracy requires. We're already a marginalised community and it's vital that we stand up for everyone in our community. Currently, it's trans people and people of colour getting the roughest ride. We have so much to celebrate and so, because we've come so far in advancing LGBTQ rights, but we need to continue supporting and fighting and advancing those rights for trans people, for people of colour, those from lower socioeconomic backgrounds, sex workers, asylum seekers, refugees. You've heard from so many powerful speakers here today. And I know that many of you are part of this community, part of our community. Stand for us, stand with us, defend us and our human rights, and keep on that pressure for change. MPs are supposed to represent us. That's why we're here today. They're failing to protect us. And so many marginalised people. Let's keep that pressure up. Let's keep speaking up. There are so many tangible things we can do. You know, one of the things is coming and hearing, you know, diversity of voices like ours today. But we need to also learn our history. We need to learn and understand about intersectionality and what it looks like and how it manifests. We need to stand up against all forms of bigotry, wherever and wherever we see it, whenever we see it, whether it's among friends or families or even in our workplaces. To the allies specifically, we need to move away from echo chamber conversations. We need you to speak up for us. We can all write to our MPs and make our voices heard. We can all support local and national LGBTQ specific and also trans-led organisations. Check out transactional resources on how you can get involved and the type of actions that you can take, whether you've got 10 minutes or an hour or longer. All I ask of you today, firstly, is to be kind and gentle with one another. We are a community and we need to continue to respect, love and hold space for one another. And secondly, when you leave here today, make a commitment to do just one thing for the advancement of trans equality, trans rights and trans liberation. Now I'm going to start with a chant. I think that's a good way to end, right? Thank you so much for listening and for listening to everyone here. And before I start the chant, big up to the organisers, Laura, Felix, and everyone else involved, and the BSL interpreters. Okay, let's go. We've got two chants, and then I'll shut up. I clearly like the sound of my own voice.
It's a good voice.
Thank you. Thank you. Trans rights are human rights.
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 There's so many of us here, I can't hear you. Trans rights are human rights.
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 When trans people are under attack, what do we do? Stand up, fight back. When trans rights are under attack, what do we do?
Stand up, fight back.
When trans rights are under attack, what do we do?
Stand up, fight back.
When trans rights are under attack, what do we do?
Stand up, fight back.
Thank you so much. I love you all.